Enjoy another life-changing message from Pastor Steve Cioccolanti, made possible by friends and partners of Discover Ministries. And now, here is your host, Pastor Steve Cioccolanti.
I don't know what happened to honor in America, but there's a generation that's not taught honor anymore. So Naoko is from an honor culture. Japan's called an honor culture. Saudi Arabia is an honor culture. Do you guys know the differences between the cultures? There are 3 kinds of cultures. This is basic missiology, the study of missions, okay? Basic, like you shouldn't go out into the world if you don't know this. You're going to cause so many problems. But not everybody lives it, but everybody should have known it if they went through mission school. So there are 3 types of culture. There's the fear-based culture, guilt-based culture, and the shame-based culture. 3 completely different ways of looking at life. Americans live in a guilt-based culture. So that's why you always have to hear every sermon by an American preacher at some point during half an hour will say, "And I don't condemn you." And this is not condemnation. At some point they will say it. I play these little things that I don't tell other people, but I play it in my head and I just think, let me just check if this is true. Let's say 99% of the time true. So it's because of the heavy guilt-based culture. That's how you live. You live in guilt. But there are people who don't have any guilt. So Arabs don't have guilt. Japanese people really don't have guilt, but they have shame. It's a totally different way of looking at things. Shame. So if you've embarrassed your dad, you have shame. Now what's the law? What's the law on not embarrassing your dad? There is no law. What's the guilt? There is no guilt. You didn't do anything wrong. There's no guilt. But the shame of dishonoring your dad, your spouse, anybody, right? Your boss. Oh my goodness. If you did that, that it's like a pastime here. The moment you take a break, you're going to badmouth your boss. But in shame culture, you don't badmouth people because it's shameful. So shame. So there's no law. There's no law you broke, right? When you speak against somebody. Americans do it all the time. Happy to do it. Celebrate it. Right? So no guilt. If it's no guilt, I can do it. Just tell me what the law says and I'll obey. But if the law doesn't say it, I'm free. That's Westerners. It's a way of living that has caused so much stress and legalism. So the bad part of it goes to Pharisaism. Now, shame culture is not great either, but it is probably more biblical. So shame-based culture is there's no law. There's no law you have to stand up for an old person. There's no law that you shouldn't speak badly about your pastor. But to do it would bring such shame on myself that in shame-based culture, you don't have to tell me I broke a law. You don't have to say I am guilty. I will take a knife and kill myself because I can't bear the shame. That's shame, shame-based culture. So what are they good at? They're good at honoring. So honor. Honor is the unwritten code. Every commandment of God in the 10 commandments are commandments of honor. All 10. They don't actually have to do with guilt so much as shame, as honor. So the obvious one is honor your father and mother because the word appears. But the rest of it is honor. Why are you loving God first? Why do you not bow down to idols? Why do you not use God's name in vain? And what exactly does that mean? Guilt-based people still debate that. Like, how far can I go before I break the law? Then I'm guilty. But if I don't break the law, I'm not guilty. I'm just okay. I'm fine. You see, that's Westerners think that that's okay. So in Western culture, it's okay. But it's highly stressful because you're always like loaded down with laws. And then you vote for politicians who promise, I will make laws for you. And you're like, you vote for that. Like, that's great. But the libertarian among Westerners will realize, why would I want that? Every law that they make takes away more of my freedom and empowers the state and the politicians more. But because of the guilt-based culture, you crave law. So your laws become heavy, very thick, until your society just collapses because nobody can live under that law. That's guilt-based. Okay, then you got shame-based. Shame-based is about honor. So honor is everything. How do you get promoted in life? It's not whether you are guilty or not guilty. It's about who did you honor and who did you dishonor. So every loss in your life will be connected to a dishonor. Now, Westerners cannot grasp this in modern time because they think, well, I didn't commit anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not guilty of anything. So why am I not promoted? Why am I losing this or that? Because it's all about law in the West. But in the East and in the Middle East, it's still called East, whether it's Far East or Middle East, Near East, Far East, Middle East, it's all East. East all think the same way. Honor. The most honorable person is the one who will have the door open to them. So now, correct me if I'm wrong, Naoko, but I think this is a funny one with the Japanese. I'm not sure how it works, but when you show up at somebody's door and they say, oh, please come in, you're supposed to not come in. Is that right? I see she's laughing. She's smiling at that. Now, the Westerners are like, well, he said, come in. What if I come in? I didn't do anything wrong. The point is, there's such a shame-based culture that it would be too much of a shame for them to say to you, I don't want you here today. Or I didn't invite you. Please go away. Please leave. Right? Americans could probably do it, but no Japanese can do it. So it's an unwritten law. You show up at somebody's house, they say, please come on in. You say, oh, I'm sumimasen, gomenasai, I'm so sorry. I really do not want to bother you. And if they might try to be nice and say, oh, please come in. And again, you must say, are you sure? I really don't want to be a bother to you. And if they don't say it a third time, you're done. Please leave. Right? Something like that. Is that right, Naoko? Okay. 2 thumbs up. All right. So again, that makes no sense to the American. It's like, that's so unnecessary and it's convoluted, but that's what honor is. Honor's honor. You're always reading, Westerners say read between the lines. This is not called reading between the lines. This is called reading the air. That's how honor cultures live. They don't even give you lines to read between. You must read the air itself. Naoko is still nodding away. Nobody else in this group is except Naoko. It's okay because you don't live in shame and honor. It's okay. But if you go to the Middle East, you will quickly learn. And they will get offended. So in the Middle East, there was a time, now don't worry about those who are coming to Saudi Arabia with me, you're protected. But there was a time in Saudi Arabia where if you just looked at a woman who was married, that husband has the right to kill you. Now, there's no law. There's no law. They'll never make it into a law. There's nothing written about it. But you have lust in your eyes and you like to look at women. Don't look at my wife. I don't think anybody does that anymore. Unless you're really, really bad, right? And Americans and Australians, they can go and hit on a girl because it didn't break any law. I'm just hitting on a girl. But did you think about who is that girl? What is the context? Who is she with? You see, but in American culture, it doesn't matter. There's no law. What does it matter? But there's a line there that you don't cross. Unspoken, unwritten. Today, they don't do that. But what I noticed was among the ultra-religious Muslims, what they do is we're driving by, and American women will be so appalled by this, but this is honor culture. We're driving by, there's a whole family, and out of a family of one father, let's say 6 kids, and there's a woman who has turned her back on your car. She doesn't even want you to see her face. So there's no way that you can even look at her. That's the way they deal with it. I'm not saying they're more moral. There's all sorts of grave, disgusting sins in Saudi Arabia and in the Middle East. But they deal with it differently. Here it's law, right? So then what do you do with all these pedophiles? How do they get around it with the law? They can get, you know what they do? They get an underage person to recruit an underage person. It's no law. See, you've got these laws that you got to try to define. Well, when is the age you can have intercourse? Well, you can't say 21 because some 18-year-olds engage in it. But what are you going to do with the 18-year-old that engages with a 16-year-old? So you're constantly trying to make new laws up to try to deal with this issue, and it's not like that. In honor culture, don't take the virginity of my girl, I'm going to kill you. That's it. It's very clear. Honor, shame. My job as a dad is to protect the purity of my daughter. If you take away that purity, I'll kill you. Finish. Don't give me any law about which age, which context, where did you take them to. Forget it. The most valuable thing about a girl for marriage is her purity. Don't take it. It's for marriage. Okay, that's honor. We don't have a law. We don't know what honor is. And so girls keep losing their virginity younger and younger and younger and younger. I don't know. Is there a law for this? Evidently there's not, right? Kids having sex with kids is evidently nothing wrong in this culture. Because there's no guilt, so it's okay. As long as we don't feel guilty, we just keep doing it. Okay, honor culture says no. Last culture, the day is going to come soon when there will be power outages, EMF attacks, fertilizer shortages, food price increase. People will be in a panic. They might come knocking on your door. What will you do? Well, what I've done is I prepared some long life food, enough for me and my family without going to the grocery. You can get Christian-owned, USA-made, organic long-life food from the same supplier that I buy. Go to newmanna.com/Pastor Steve. This Christian company will give you 10% off. We get a supply of water filters. They're gravity-fed water filters. You can put water from your pool, your lake, anywhere, and get potable, safe drinking water for you and your family. How will you prepare? Don't forget newmanna.com. Just go to newmanna.com/Pastor Steve to claim your discount and stock up before the global famine hits. Stock up with water, stock up with food so that you're ready before the black horse comes. Last culture, fear-based culture. Fear-based culture. So that is the African culture. Generally, in some of the islands, islanders, Africans have fear-based cultures. I don't pretend to understand it as much, but I have been in it and I understand how to preach the gospel in it. So they're concerned not about guilt. When missionaries came to Africa, they just killed them all. Just killed them. There's no guilt killing them. There's no shame killing them because they were not fearful. Their God was smaller than our African God. So there's nothing wrong. As long as you're more powerful, you can do whatever you want. That's African culture. So who has the power? Who has the power? It's a power-based culture. In a certain sense, that's why to the West, Africa will never develop. By Western standard or by Eastern standard. It will never change because it will always be about power. The person who has the power has the right to do whatever they like. Power-based culture. So the power has to be displayed. So if you go into American churches that are run by traditional African Americans, you will see the display of power. The pastor must dress higher class. He must have the big fat ring. He will go outside and the church will have provided a Jaguar for him because they would not even accept. And I can say that because I used to go to an all black church, completely black church in New York. And it has to be displayed that he has the most power. Okay. Now where did that come from? It's like another subculture inside of America that came from Africa. So when you go to Africa, you do any mission trip in Africa, you will see that's on full display. So that's one issue. What else?
When you become a Christian, how is that perceived? Does that bring dishonor to the family? Is that what happens at that point?
Oh, it's very easy. In fear-based culture, as long as you can prove your God is bigger than their God, you win. So I would go in and I challenged them as a young Christian. I challenged them. I got to a village in Africa that no one had evangelized before. And I said, bring me the sick. And if I don't heal them in Jesus' name, then I'm a false prophet and you can kick me out of this town. So they brought up a blind boy. I prayed for him. He opened his eyes. Everybody came, including the village chief. He bowed in front of me. This old man bowed in front of me. And the white lady that was with me, she was from London. She nearly grabbed him and said, oh, no. Oh, don't do that. She's all about guilt. I said, you don't understand. He is submitting to Jesus. But I'm a young Christian and she's probably older than me at that time. And she's, I don't have time to deal with her, but I could perceive such a cultural misunderstanding. She didn't even understand what was going on. She wanted to impose her culture on the village chief. And by her standard, we're all equal and, we live in this egalitarian Western society and you shouldn't really be bowing down to anybody. But I knew that he had submitted, and if I let him do that, the rest of the village will follow. And sure enough, when he bowed down, all of them started coming. And I said, okay, everybody, Jesus did this. You're going to accept Jesus in this village, and you're going to talk about this after I'm gone. Remember, Jesus was here. He proved himself to you. He's the great God. He proved himself by healing this blind boy and then I say, whose boy is this? Whose boy is this? And get the father over here. And the translator said, it's my son. So the translator, who's a Muslim, African Muslim, gave his life to the Lord.
Okay, so speaking of the Muslim and the East, what's the difference now if it's them? If it's somebody in the Middle East, right? It's honor-based.
Mm-hmm.
In an honor-based, how would that interaction go? What would be the reaction? How would they perceive you sharing the gospel with them?
You have to change the language of it. I'm not an expert on it. I'm an expert on Buddhism. I wrote a book called From Buddha to Jesus, and the technique, how to adjust very quickly by reading From Buddha to Jesus. You should read it because you're following my ministry. You should learn how to evangelize in this way. I would have to go back and study how the Muslims would do it, but what I would know is you need to be a person of honor, first of all. So if you're not a person of honor, they can tell. That's highly offensive. So when you come into a culture that's honor culture and you sit, let's say you sit and you cross your leg and you point the soles of your feet towards someone that's more powerful than you, that's older than you, even a woman doing that to a man, a child doing that to an adult, the end. Nothing else that you say matters because you're a dishonorable person. How could you show the soles of your foot to me, is what an honor culture would say. Thailand is that way, by the way. Thailand is like that. If you ever, Westerners sometimes, out of laziness or convenience, when something is somewhere, instead of pointing, they'll point with their feet. It is so shameful, so unacceptable, so cringy that no one will listen to you. And people do that all the time. American missionaries will go out and they think they're preaching the gospel and they do all these things in the background and then they say the people don't want Jesus. No, the people just don't want your offense. So never point with your feet. Never. Another one that Americans do that is intolerable, and I see people do it in the church. They call me this way. They say, wow, if anybody calls you with a finger like this. You calling a pet or something? The image is, my little finger is bigger than your entire body. I'm going to pull you with my finger. Get over here. That's how it's perceived. Americans do it. They don't realize it. But in the rest of the world, it's the end. Naoko, is that right? It's indescribable, that gesture. It's like worse than the middle finger. It's unbelievable that people think they can pull someone with their little finger. So the most we can do, so if I want to call you, I have to use my whole hand and I have to be very soft with it. I say, oh, please, you mind coming over here? Please. I'm giving you the choice to come. I am not drawing you. I'm not hooking you with my little finger. I'm asking, over here something is happening. Could you please come? Some of them have their own way. I saw in Burma, they extend their hand out and they go like this. And it's like cute. So then okay, they're calling you, right? So it's more like, please have a look at me. I'm just a little guy. Please have a look at me. I'm trying to get your attention. So it's not this big guy. Get over here. It's, can you see me? Can you see me? I'm over here. You see the difference?
Yeah.
All right. What you would have to show is that Jesus came to restore honor. He didn't come to take away your guilt, which is what the Western gospel is. He came to take away your guilt. You don't have to be guilty anymore. Now you're free. And then the next question from the Westerner is, now that I'm free, where's the line that I don't cross? How much can I do and get away with it? Because it's all about your guilt. You forgot to enter into the kingdom, into this system of honor. And you will be rewarded based on honor. So the guilt has been done away, thank God. But when are you ever going to enter into the kingdom of honor and power? He says power as well. Glory, honor, and power belongs to our Lord. Right? He rarely says innocence belongs to our Lord. We're so babyish in a way. We care about innocence and guilt. And that's like the way back in the garden. It's just the restoration of your own personal restoration. But there's much more. So you would have to present that Adam and Eve did something shameful, which is there. By the way, guilt, shame, and powerlessness, fear, all three were described in the Garden of Eden. The shame is the fact that they cover themselves with the fig leaf. The fear, they actually said it. They said, where are you, Adam? And they say, well, we hid ourselves because we were afraid. Or why you put the fig leaf on? Because we are ashamed. All three were there. And then they also became powerless. You would have to emphasize not the guilt, but the shame. They brought shame to God and they brought shame to themselves. And that's why we all wear clothes. And Jesus came to honor his Father. And Jesus came to take away the shame, the shamefulness of humanity. So if you preach it as, oh, you don't have to be guilty anymore. You can be free. You can do whatever you want. There's no condemnation. The Arabs are like, what are you talking about? As long as my family loves me, I honor my family, I honor my country, I don't have any shame. I can even kill a homosexual, kill a Christian. I don't have any shame. So you have to emphasize, how does Jesus restore honor? How does he take away shame and restore honor into our lives? Because it's hard to do that because they have an honor system already. So you may accept Jesus, but you've dishonored the family. How can we reconcile that? And I'm not an expert, but this is what I do with the Asian side. So in the Asian side, they will say shame, shame, shame. Why? You dishonor our family. How? Well, you dishonor our ancestors. Right? Because our ancestors worship this way. They were all Buddhist, Hindu, Taoist, whatever they were, right? So here's the way I teach this from Buddha to Jesus. I say, oh, no, we are not here to dishonor your ancestors. We're here to honor them. I honor my ancestors more by following Jesus. And they say, how is that? I say, what do your ancestors want? What do all your ancestors, go back as many generations as you want, what do they want? They want your child to be a good person. And we all know Christians are good people. And we know every ancestor, as far back as you can trace, they all want your child to go to heaven, not to go to hell. And the only guarantee we have that we're going to heaven is that the owner of heaven has honored you and opened the door of heaven to your son or your daughter, whoever it is. So we have honored all the ancestors by following Jesus. I've never heard a word back. Agree or disagree, they will never forget, because that's the truth. It's 100% true. But I've phrased the truth in a way that they, in their culture, find it easy to receive. And this is what God does. He makes it easy to receive God by coming down to be born in the flesh. We have to incarnate our message. We have to put flesh on our message, not just punch people with it. People are people, right? You can have the best techniques and have a bad day at evangelizing someone. You can't beat yourself up, because even Jesus was not 100% batting. But he said his batting average is 250. So he'll hit 100 balls and he gets a quarter. He'll hit a quarter. He'll miss 75%. That's Jesus' batting average. And if you don't believe that, how many people did he tell to go up to the upper room and wait for the day of Pentecost? Face to face. After he is resurrected, he said to 500 people, 500 people, go and do this. 120 said, yes, sir. But where's the rest? Where's the 380? Not even the resurrected Jesus, face to face, could get 100%. So you must learn, you must try to be more sensitive and more, contextualize your message. But in the end, you have to accept people have free will. And they won't all say, I'm happy about your message. Some of them will hate you first, and then they will turn later. And you also have to give people room to say no. That's something that Christians don't understand. Same with kids. You can't insist all the time, this is what I want. This is the way I like. This is the way I grew up, so it must be this way. You have to just give them room to pause, to think about it, to accept it, to come around. If somebody loves you, they should come around. That's the ultimate thing. That's the test. If you love someone, you're going to learn to give and take. If you love someone, you'll give and take. Where I go, I'd like you to go with me. And what I know and what I'm experiencing, I'd like you to experience. You may not want it right now, but you have to know the heart is love. So I try to go back to that. Not about right and wrong, which is more Western. It's called argumentative or adversarial style. Westerners are very adversarial. But I try to maintain the relationship. I haven't succeeded all the time. I think I told you the story after we talked about the Civil War or something like that in America. After that, I got a call from a ministry who wanted to correct me. And I said, well, everything that you're correcting me on, I agree with. So there's really not that much difference between us. I mean, I don't even see any. So we need to better get along, right? Because we got all this fighting for the salvation of America. We should better get along. At least the Christians should better get along, right? We're on the same side. So do you know what this very highly qualified person said to me? Hey, what would you say if I say, okay, Naoko, we're going to try Naoko. I say, Naoko, I don't think we're really so different. You know what you say? You thought it was different, but actually I agree with you, Naoko, and we're really on the same side. We should be fighting the battle of the real enemies, the globalists, the tyrants, right? The transgender agenda against our kids. We're really on the same side, Naoko. What do you say? Okay, so we're going to be together. The relationship is the most important. For Asians, the relationship is the most important. Not right and wrong, the relationship. You break the relationship, you can be right, they'll never talk to you again. They'll never help you again. Doesn't matter, right? It's the relationship first. This highly qualified American who called me to tell me that I'm wrong and she's correcting me, when I said to her, I actually agree with her and we're on the same side, her reply was, "What do you mean by side?" So she wants to be right. If she reconciles with me in her paradigm, she's wasted an hour being wrong. So her Western culture does not allow her to be wrong. For the sake of having a relationship, the relationship isn't valuable. Her being right is valuable. So that's what we deal with cultures. Okay.
You've been listening to Pastor Steve Cioccolanti, a prophetic voice in our time, and this ministry is made possible by the generosity of partners and friends. Please consider becoming one today. For more information about Discover Ministries or to obtain teaching resources to help you grow spiritually, visit our web store at discover.org.au. Pastor Steve wants to remind you, love God, love people, and look up.